Hello, brother. So, when you're retaining, man, you will fall into a lot of traps. And so, what we're going to do today, man, is we're going to go through all of the traps that exist, okay? Let's begin. Trap number 1 is having everything be riding on whether or not you are retaining. Trap number 2, putting pressure on yourself to retain because you think there's some kind of expectation to do so. Trap number 3, thinking, oh, dude, everyone else must be retaining, right? No, not necessarily, man. The reality of this work is, man, everyone struggles with it. And everyone's just doing their best. If you knew how lustful and undisciplined people are, really, you'd realize no one's fucking doing this work, man. No one's doing this practice. No one's retaining. Of course, there are a very small percentage of people who have woken up to the benefits, but most people, man, they're not retaining. Trap number 4, developing black and white thinking when it comes to sexual discipline. Thinking that retention is pure and disciplined, but that sex and masturbation is undisciplined. So the reality is, dude, it's not as black and white as this. So you can drop that thinking if you had that thinking, yeah? Trap number 5, judging yourself if you do decide to be more sexual. So the wisdom here is sometimes you will release, and that's okay. But judging yourself is not part of the practice. So, yes, the idea is to not release your energy too often, but still don't judge yourself if you do decide to release your sexual energy. Sometimes it can actually be really helpful. Trap number 6, trying to be a saint with retention. Trying to be perfect. Trying to never release. So practically speaking, man, this just leads to repression. It leads to the denial of your sexuality. It just makes you a tense bastard. It makes you a pressured person. Not to mention the fact that you've brainwashed yourself to think that you can't be with your human sexuality and your human sexual desires. Have you ever realized that, man? I've really warped my perception with this whole retention thing. You want to notice that, yeah? Trap number 7, resisting and repressing your sexuality because of moral purity or righteousness. So thinking that there's some kind of moral advantage to retention or sexual discipline. The truth is, man, there's nothing moral or immoral about it. We don't do it because of some subtle religious conditioning. We do it because it makes us more conscious. It raises vibration and it helps us become the men that we know we can be. If you think there's a moral component to this, you're confused and you're misunderstanding purity for something moral. Really, man, purity refers to a spiritual purity, an energetic purity. So it has nothing to do with being good or bad. So if you've got some religious stories or some religious stuff going on in your mind, man, just fucking drop that, bro. So just be honest with yourself, man. Do I have any religious bullshit in my mind still? Is that fueling this? Or can I do this to actually pursue a true purity, not some bullshit religious ideas? Trap number 8. It's quite funny, man. Retaining for so long that you actually become unrelatable to others because you hold such a high level of energy that you start to become this manic person. you start to tap into such high states of energy that you actually feel invincible. Now you almost have a contempt for your old self and for anyone really who hasn't woken up to the power of this practice. You feel like a god. But the trap here is not seeing that you cannot maintain this God state. So basically, man, it's unwise to build your entire life and sense of self and identity around retention and this state because it's temporary. It's a part of your experience, but it's not who you are, So, the wisdom here is, yes, enjoy the energy, but don't cling to it and think it's who you are. Yeah. Trap number 9, getting sucked into the retention space and losing connection with your own nuanced perspective, especially on sex, sexuality, and masturbation. Basically, this means not being your own authentic SR practitioner and simplistically thinking that you always need to be retaining. Fucking hell, man, you don't. The truth is, it's not as simple as that. I myself have distanced myself from retention in the past year or two, literally just to remember what I actually like when it comes to sex and sexual release. I needed to take a break, literally, to just remember and rediscover what my genuine sexual preferences are, rather than just blindly retaining. Because that's what you might do, man. if you're not really like genuinely being true to yourself, you might just blindly retain, just retain always, just thinking that you need to do that. But actually, you want it to be authentic. You want to be doing it deliberately, consciously. So if you're just mindlessly going for as long as you can, because that's what you think you should be doing, you're probably overlooking your personal needs and values. What you can do instead is slow down, do more inner work, and get honest about what you actually need for yourself. P.S., this takes balls, okay? Because it might mean that you actually retain less. But what might happen is you discover your ideal release frequency. And as a result, you become so much more balanced, happy, and in alignment with a level of energy that suits you. Trap number 10, having what I would call the retention bias, where you attribute everything that is going well in your life to the fact that you are retaining. Trap number 11, getting attached to the practice of retention. So thinking that you need it, thinking that it's something that you must have. In reality, man, you're way better off having detachment from this practice, because otherwise, man, you're just going to suffer when you inevitably release your energy. That's the conclusion that you will come to. Trap number 12, forcing retention and developing what I would call retention depression or retention stuckness. And then trying to wade through your heavy ass untransmuted energy because you refuse to surrender to a sexual release. Trap number 13, pushing down your genuine sexual needs and wants. So again, being repressed because you're retaining, but you're not actually listening to yourself. Trap number 14, bypassing potentially meaningful sexual experiences because you're worried about losing your retention streak. Trap number 15, never taking breaks from retention and never experiencing that clear-headedness and that post-nut clarity. The truth is, there are good insights to be had in that mental space. Do not avoid it forever. Trap number 16, thinking that you need retention because without it, your professional or creative endeavors would suffer. The truth is, this is actually a self-limiting belief. You don't need to tell yourself this. And instead, you can tell yourself a different story. So you can realize that the true source of your creativity is actually you, not your retention streak. Take back your power and realize you can still be fun, creative, and spontaneous even without some of that next level Ojja Shakti. Trap number 17, not letting yourself burn through some sexual karma when you're moving through a really horny phase. Trap number 18, becoming a horny bastard and never letting yourself enjoy a nice sexual release. Trap number 19, using retention as a coping mechanism. So subtly lying to yourself about your sexual needs and then using retention as a way of regulating yourself and your emotions throughout a prolonged sexless period. Trap number 20, doing retention to literally avoid sex because you don't want to deal with everything that comes with sex. The emotions, the physicality, the messiness, the vulnerability, basically shirking the responsibility of being a lover. Trap number 21, trying to prevent wet dreams or nocturnal emissions because you don't want to lose your retention streak. So yeah, you can take certain measures to limit these and have them less, but notice your attachment to retention. Notice how much of your power you're externalizing when you rely on retention or when you're disappointed that you've had a wet dream. Start to realize that you don't want retention per se, you want freedom. And so start to become more accepting of wet dreams. Because for you to be free and have that freedom, you've got to accept your human self fully and all of your human limitations and realities. Trap number 22. Doing retention to try and gain an edge over others, rather than developing yourself to become more self-actualized and more loving. Trap number 23. Underestimating the power of shorter but more consistent retention streaks. So yes, longer streaks are way more powerful, but don't simplistically think that longer streaks are good and shorter streaks are bad. Trap number 24. Looking up to retainers as opposed to sages. So in other words, don't admire someone just because they retain. Instead, look up to truly wise people. Okay? People who embody wisdom, consciousness, and love over this one tool of retention. Yeah. Trap number 25. Expecting good results from retention, but your health, diet, and lifestyle sucks. Trap number 26. Rejecting masturbation altogether without any consideration of how it could be done healthfully and mindfully. Trap number 27. Doing retention, but without any awareness of what sexual transmutation is and how it levels up your practice when you actually are aware of that and, do it deliberately or just know about it, Trap number 28. Doing retention, but jumping right into the deep end and thinking that you need to be some perfect celibate yogi or Akanda Brahmachari. This is nonsense, man. Just be where you are. Trap number 29. Putting pressure on yourself to retain when you're not actually in a good place mentally, and a release might actually give you some relief and some clarity. Trap number 30. Thinking that releasing your sexual energy is a relapse, when in reality, it's not. A relapse is engaging in the PMO cycle. So pornography, masturbation, and orgasm. Just releasing your sexual energy with a partner or with yourself is not a relapse because you're not returning to your old life. You're just resetting your energy. P.S. This assumes you're doing it mindfully and deliberately, not impulsively and unconsciously. Trap number 31. Resisting your love for sex. So if you're very sexually oriented or you just really enjoy sex, you don't need to deny that or turn that down always. You just need to self-experiment and see what works for you. Maybe you can have sex, but you only do it so many times per week or per month. Or you do it in a particular way, which leads us to our next trap. Trap number 32. Not realizing that there's this whole thing that you can do called sacred sexuality. So, not researching and not practicing things like karezza, tantra, and non-ejaculatory sex. Because you're not sure about it or you're not that familiar with it yet. Trap number 33. Retaining, but solely for the purposes of female attraction. Trap number 34. Retaining, but solely for the purposes of self-confidence and self-esteem. So interestingly, man, this is actually a trap. And the reason it is a trap is because you do actually want to develop your character, your sense of self, and your ego. You don't want to be spending your life relying on some practice that gives you fleeting states of higher vibration. Instead, pursue genuine personal growth and pursue genuine inner work. Trap number 35. Retaining, but without any spiritual outlook, without consciousness, love, or beauty. Doing retention without spirituality can often bring out your ego. So instead, keep this in check by meditating and connecting to God as you tread the spiritual path. Trap number 36. Doing retention to try and help you quit pornography, but subtly avoiding doing the real inner emotional work. So this looks like you just infinitely living out the same patterns of behavior, which are relapsing, then retaining for a few days, then relapsing, then retaining for a few days, and so on. So this is using retention, but it's to use it to bullshit yourself into thinking that you're making progress, when really you're just distracting yourself with retention. The wisdom here is don't fool yourself and bullshit yourself. Have some balls and look at the truth. Trap number 37. This is good. Thinking that retention is the most important thing in the whole world and overlooking things that might make more of a difference to you, like coaching, therapy, or profound spiritual work. Trap number 38. Denying casual sex altogether because you think it's bad and thinking that retention is good. So again, this is very black and white and closed-minded. Instead, open yourself up to all experiences and learn. Burn through your sexual karma. Don't deny it like some horny, repressed celibate. Trap number 39. Practicing retention to become an alpha male and not doing the inner emotional work to actually develop inner security and healthy masculinity. Trap number 40. Thinking that you can't be charismatic without the power of retention. So again, this is BS. You can still be incredibly charismatic without retention in your experience. I find it comes down more to your level of presence and your level of truth. If you're expressing yourself presently and truthfully, you can and will have a huge influence on others. Trap number 41, not practicing retention. Busting nuts every day. Don't do this. Instead, just be generally retaining, man. You don't need to be crazy with it. You don't need to be doing like super long streaks. Just generally be retaining and remove all lust and remove all compulsion. Trap number 42. Retaining, but not really living your life. Not enjoying sex. Not having relationships. Not experimenting and gaining valuable life experience. The reality is, brother, you want to live. You want to experience things. And you can't do this if you're always denying yourself and always in monk mode. There's actually a deeper maturity in breaking your retention streak, sometimes so that you can learn things and so that you can gain what we could call life wisdom. Trap number 43, counting days too much and not letting retention be a natural part of your life. You can count days, but the way I would do it is just journal when you begin your streak and, mark that day somewhere. And then, man, just like forget about it. So just live your normal life. The idea is to be living it, not thinking about it too much. Trap number 44, spending too much time on retention and not engaging with beauty, femininity, surrender, and romance. Caveat, yeah, you can still do this on retention, but can you surrender yourself fully and not secretly still be on monk mode? Or secretly still in your masculine self? Note, observe your ego's avoidance to fully surrendering to the feminine within you. It's very deep work that most won't do, but it will actually bolster your masculinity and well-roundedness, perhaps more than anything. Trap number 45, developing a retention shadow. So doing retention lots and loving it, but subtly creating a subconscious fear of sex, intimacy, and orgasm. So it's where you love the retention, but you tend to block out a lot of the intimate sexual stuff. This creates a dark side. It's like a subtle feeling of fear and anxiety, knowing that you're almost like favoring retention too much, and that really you need to go and explore the opposite world, so the world of sexual release, vulnerability, and orgasm. But that kind of freaks you out because you associate that stuff with weakness and unsafeness. So what you do is you just rationalize to yourself, oh, retention is good. I just need to keep retaining. But what happens is you make this shadow deeper and darker. You become more fearful of orgasm, more avoidant of sex, and you live with this general feeling of unease and anxiety because deep down you know you're avoiding the real inner work. The solution is this. Start being honest. Start putting light on that darkness. Look at your fear and look at your avoidance. It will be scary, but you can do this and it will be totally okay. Trap number 46. Watching or consuming any kind of pornography. This is a hard no and will toxify your retention streak. Keep yourself pure and don't go near pornography. Trap number 47. Having semen retention content as your main source of personal development. So basically, man, if this is the only thing you consume, it will be very shallow for you. My advice, man, is go broader, go deeper, and diversify. The problem with this content alone is it's just too limited. And you kind of keep yourself stuck in a retention echo chamber. Instead, swim out further and take in more philosophical and spiritual content. Start thinking deeper and start focusing on personal development and spiritual work, not just retention. Trap number 48. Telling yourself the story that you need retention to be who you really are. This is BS. You can always be yourself. And you just need to accept yourself and show yourself to others. Trap number 49, judging your friends and family for not retaining and for not seeing how amazing this practice is. And finally, trap number 50, chasing retention highs and not seeing the beauty of where you are right now. So, my perspective on retention has evolved so much over the past year. And I'm very grateful to be sharing with you that I right now don't need retention anymore. I love this practice, and that's why I still do it and probably will always do it to some extent. But I point out these traps to you to help you become free. For a long time, I wasn't free, man, because I was desperately trying to retain, and I was basically denying my humanity. I would avoid sex, I would avoid wet dreams, I would avoid relationships, whereas now, as I'm maturing, I see that this whole retention thing is a tool. It's not your life. But if you do make it your life, go for it. But notice how much you suffer when it's inevitably stripped away from you because of a wet dream, a sexual impulse, a sexual experience, or just the pull of your humanity. Love this practice and be disciplined. But don't be neurotic and don't get too attached. Be wise and see the bigger picture.